Two giant mastiffs nobody wanted. A bonded pair surrendered in a stranger's divorce and left in a shelter for 290 days, where the two dogs a retired school teacher almost didn't take home. 11 months later, at 2:51 in the morning, those same two dogs did something no doctor had taught them and no alarm could do, and it is the only reason Carolyn Hale opened her eyes the next day. Carolyn Hale was 56 years old and had just retired from teaching high school chemistry, 31 years in the same district, the last 19 of them at Wellesley High in Wellesley, Massachusetts. She lived alone in a colonial off Cliff Road that had felt full once. Her marriage had ended a decade earlier. Her son Daniel was 2,900 miles away in Portland. For 31 years, she had walked into a room every morning, and 140 teenagers had needed her. Then one June afternoon, she handed in her keys, drove home, and the need simply stopped. She told people retirement was wonderful. She did not tell them she now spent entire days without speaking out loud, or that the quiet in the colonial had a texture, or that she still set two places at the table out of a 31-year reflex, and then sat looking at the empty one. There was something else she did not tell people. Carolyn had been a type 1 diabetic since she was 24. For 32 years, she had managed it like the chemistry teacher she was, precise, disciplined, never a number out of place. But she lived alone now, and the thing every diabetic who lives alone fears most is the night. A blood sugar that drops too low while you sleep does not always wake you. Sometimes it just takes you, quietly, in the dark. She taught the chemistry of it, she just tried not to think about it at 2 a.m. She was not looking for a dog. She had driven to the Bate State Animal Shelter in Framingham to drop off a box of old towels. She would have left in 10 minutes if a volunteer hadn't said, almost to herself, "Those two are out of time on Monday." Their names were Bruno and Sully. Bruno was a black Cane Corso, 128 pounds, with a head like an anvil and eyes that tracked everything. Sully was an English Mastiff, 207 pounds of fawn-colored gentleness, with a face that drooped like melted caramel. They had been one man's pride for 6 years, until his divorce, when the house sold, a new apartment said no dogs over 40 pounds, and he signed both of them the same afternoon. That was 290 days ago. In that time, 26 families had asked about them. Everyone wanted a single dog, and the shelter would not separate them. The two had been crated apart for one night early on, and Sully had screamed, a sound the staff still talked about. The coordinator, a brisk woman named Dot Ferris, laid it out plainly. 2 dogs this size eat 15 pounds of food a week. The vet bills run 4 figures a year. And most people take one look at 335 pounds of Mastiff sharing a kennel and keep walking. "They're good dogs," she said. "They're just too much dog for almost everyone." Carolyn walked back to look. Only to look. Sully was pressed into the corner, all 207 pounds folded small, the way a big thing makes itself smaller when it has stopped hoping. Bruno stood in front of him. When Carolyn crouched at the gate, Bruno didn't bark or wag. He came to the bars, lowered his anvil head, and rested his nose against the back of her hand, and breathed her in, slow, twice, 3 times, like he was reading something. Then he sat down and looked at her as if a decision had already been made and was only waiting on her. She signed for both of them before she let herself think about it. The first week was a comedy of scale. Sully knocked a framed diploma off the wall with one swing of his tail. Bruno inspected every door in the house twice. The leather couch became theirs in under an hour. Sully draped across the back like a fallen tree, Bruno on the cushion, Carolyn perched on the arm if she was quick. She learned their rules. Bruno would not eat until he carried his bowl to wherever Carolyn was and set it at her feet, as if dining alone were beneath them both. Sully snored like an outboard motor, and whenever Carolyn sat down, anywhere, Bruno pressed the flat of his enormous head against the center of her chest and leaned 128 pounds and held it there, listening to something she couldn't hear. There were other rules. Sully was afraid of the kitchen's tile floor and would only cross it on his toes, 207 pounds moving like a cat burglar, and only if Bruno went first to prove it was safe. Bruno collected exactly one item a day, a sock, a remote, an oven mitt, and stacked it in the same corner of the living room, a small museum of stolen things he never chewed and never explained. Her Bruner thought she'd lost her mind. Her grocery bill went up $70 a week, but she was talking out loud again, narrating her whole day to a Cane Corso who grumbled back like the world's most opinionated house guest. She set one place at the table now and 3 bowls on the floor. For the first time since June, she had a reason to come home and 2 reasons not to be quiet. Her neighbor across the street, a retired contractor named Russ, who had built half the additions on Cliff Road, told her flat out she'd taken on more than she should. 2 weeks later, he was at her kitchen table every Wednesday with a bag of marrow bones, claiming he was just being neighborly. Bruno had decided Russ was acceptable. That, apparently, was the whole story. And without meaning to, she started sleeping. The 2 of them took up stations around her bed, Sully a warm wall on the floor, Bruno at her feet, and the night that used to feel like a held breath began slowly to feel like a room with someone in it. If Carolyn's story is reaching you, hit subscribe before the hard part. 2 dogs waited 290 days for someone to stay with theirs. One afternoon, she dozed off in the armchair and woke to find both of them had moved without a sound to bracket her, Sully's chin on one armrest and Bruno's on the other, 2 enormous sentries who had decided a sleeping woman should not be left unwatched. She told herself they just liked being close. She was beginning to suspect it was something more. She thought that was the whole gift. She had no idea the real one was something they were doing while she slept, something a camera would have to show her. The camera came from Daniel. He worried about his mother alone in that big house with her diabetes, and one weekend he mounted a little indoor camera on the bookshelf, linked it to his phone in Portland, and aimed it down the hall to her bedroom. "Check on me all you want," she'd teased him. "Nothing happens here but dog snoring." It was Daniel who saw it first, 3 weeks later, scrolling the saved clips on a slow night shift. He called her at 7 her time, his voice strange. "Mom," he said, "watch the 2:51 clip, every night." Carolyn pulled it up. At 2:51 a.m. exactly, Bruno rose from the foot of the bed. He walked to her side, put his head down near her face and breathed, the same slow reading he'd done at the kennel gate. Then he nudged her hand where it lay outside the blanket twice and settled. Sully shifted closer. Every single night, the same minute, the same nudge of the same hand, the hand she pricked for blood tests. She laughed it off. "They're just creatures of habit," she told him, but the chemistry teacher in her filed it away, the way you file a result that doesn't fit the hypothesis yet. She did not know that the thing Bruno was reading off her breath and her skin at 2:51 every night was a number, and that one night soon, that number would try to kill her. It was a Thursday in late February. Carolyn had started a new long-acting insulin that week, and she'd eaten lightly at dinner, and she'd gone to bed not feeling quite right and told herself it was nothing. Sometime after 2, her blood sugar began to fall and kept falling, the way it does in sleep when no one is awake to feel the sweat and the shaking and the slow slide toward a place you don't come back from. At 2:51 a.m., Bruno did not do his quiet rounds. At 2:51 a.m., 128 pounds of Cane Corso came up onto the bed, stood over her, and barked into her face, a sound that filled the house. She didn't move. He grabbed the blanket in his teeth and dragged it off her body. Sully was up, the snore gone, replaced by a deep, urgent howl aimed at the door. Bruno pawed her shoulder hard, again, and finally Carolyn surfaced, soaked through, her heart slamming, her hands shaking too badly to hold anything, her mind a gray fog with one word fighting up through it. Low. She was very, very low. She kept juice on the nightstand the way every diabetic who lives alone is told to. She got the cap off on the 3rd try and drank all of it, then lay back with a 207-pound Mastiff's head on her chest and a Cane Corso pressed to her side and waited, shaking, for the chemistry in her own blood to climb back. It did. By the time the sun came up, she could hold a cup of coffee. She sat on the leather couch between her 2 dogs and cried into Bruno's black neck for an hour. Her endocrinologist, Dr. Patel, went quiet when Carolyn described the night, and quieter when she described the 2:51 ritual on the camera. "Dogs can smell it," she finally said. "The chemical changes when you drop low have a scent. Some dogs are trained for years to alert on it." She paused. Nobody trained these 2. They've just been telling you every night that they were watching the one thing you couldn't. Carolyn, who had spent 31 years measuring reactions on a whiteboard, sat in that office and understood that 2 dogs nobody wanted had been reading her own chemistry better than she could read it herself. She'd read the case studies for years, Dr. Patel admitted, and never once seen it walk into her office on a leash. Daniel flew in from Portland that weekend and didn't say much. He just sat on the floor of his mother's living room with his arms around 207 pounds of fawn mastiff for a long time. Carolyn wears a continuous glucose monitor that alarms at night now, a backup to the two she trusts more. She started volunteering Saturdays at the Bay State shelter, telling the story of Kennel 12 to anyone deciding whether two big dogs were too much dog. In the 3 months after, every bonded pair in that shelter found a home. Bruno is 7 now, and Sully is 8, borrowed time for a mastiff, and Carolyn does not waste a day of it. Bruno still carries his bowl to her feet before he'll eat. Sully still snores like a failing engine, and every single time she sits down, Bruno still presses his head to the center of her chest and leans and listens, and now she knows exactly what he is listening for. She still wakes a little before 2:51 most nights, just to feel the mattress dip when he rises. She doesn't need the camera anymore. She has the real thing, breathing in the dark, keeping a watch she never asked for and can no longer imagine living without. She spent 31 years teaching teenagers that the body is just chemistry, reactions you can measure if you know what to look for. It took 2 dogs the whole world walked past to read the one number she couldn't feel. Maybe that is what rescue actually is. Not the afternoon you sign the papers, the night something with no reason on earth to love you decides your life is worth staying awake for. So tell me below, did Carolyn rescue Bruno and Sully, or did 2 dogs nobody wanted rescue her right back? And if an animal ever sensed something in you before you knew it yourself, tell me what happened. Somebody out there living alone tonight needs to read that they might not be as alone as they feel.